Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a topic that can sound a little intimidating, but it's absolutely essential for any manufacturer: the manufacturing overhead budget. Stick with me, because I promise by the end of this, we're going to make it all make sense.
So just think about it for a second. A car factory knows exactly how much steel it needs for a car. A bakery can tell you the cost of flour down to the gram. But what about everything else? The electricity that keeps the lights on and the machines running? The factory rent? The salary for the person supervising the floor? How in the world do you plan for those kinds of costs?
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. These are what accountants call overhead costs, all those indirect, sometimes hidden expenses of production. And the main tool companies use to get a handle on them is the manufacturing overhead budget. It's a critical piece of their entire financial game plan.
Now, to really understand this one specific budget, we first got to zoom out and see where it fits into the bigger picture. Every company has a master plan, a sort of financial roadmap for the whole year.
This master budget isn't just a single document. It's much better to think of it like a big binder, full of different but interconnected plans that all work together. It's really the playbook for the entire business for a specific period of time.
So, this big master budget, it's pretty much split into two main halves. On one side, you have the operating budget. This is all about the day-to-day, the things that actually generate income, sales, production, all that jazz. And that's where we're going to be focused. On the other side is the financial budget, which deals more with cash flow and the company's overall financial health. Our hero for today, the manufacturing overhead budget, lives right inside that operating budget.
All right, let's get to the heart of it. What exactly is manufacturing overhead when we get right down to it?
The most important phrase to lock onto here is cannot be easily traced. For instance, if you're making a wooden table, the wood is a direct cost. Easy, you can trace it. But what about the glue, the sandpaper, the electricity that powered the tools? That's overhead. It's all the stuff that's absolutely vital for production, but supports the whole process, not just one single item.
And this next part is absolutely critical. Overhead costs come in two main flavors. You've got variable overhead, which goes up or down depending on how much you produce. Make more stuff, and your electricity bill goes up. Makes sense. Then you have fixed overhead. This stuff is stubborn. It stays the same whether you make one item or 10,000. That factory rent has to be paid every month, no matter what. Understanding the split is the real key to building an accurate budget.
So what kinds of things get tossed into this big overhead bucket? We're talking about indirect materials like lubricants for machines and cleaning supplies. There's indirect labor. That's the pay for everyone in the factory who isn't physically assembling the product, like the maintenance crew or the quality inspectors. And then you got a whole bunch of other factory costs. Everything from the water bill to the rent to the depreciation on all that expensive machinery.
Okay, so we know what it is. Now for the really cool part. How do we actually build one of these things? It's really just a logical, step-by-step process.
It boils down to 4 steps. First, and this is the foundation for everything, you start with how many units you plan to make. Then, for step 2, you figure out your variable costs for that specific volume. Step 3, you nail down your fixed costs for that period. And finally, step 4, you just add them together. That's it. Let's see what it looks like with some actual numbers. This is where it all comes together. Just look at the top row. Production is ramping up each month. Now, look at the next line. See how the variable overhead goes up right along with it? That's because it's directly tied to production. But then look at the fixed overhead. It's like a rock, $50,000 every single month. It doesn't move. Add the 2 lines together, and there you have it, your total budgeted MOH. This is planning in action. Now, just creating the budget is only half the job. The real power comes from what you do with it. This budget lets us create a rate so we can apply all these indirect costs to the products we're actually making. And this is the key result, the predetermined overhead rate. The name sounds a bit academic, but it's just an estimate you calculate before the period begins. It gives a company a systematic way to assign a little piece of the total overhead cost to every single unit it produces. This is how you get from that giant pool of factory costs to a specific cost per product. So first, we figure out the rate for our variable costs.
It's simple. You just take your total estimated variable overhead for the year and divide it by how many units you plan to make. In this case, that gives us the 60 cents per unit we saw in the budget earlier.
And then we do the same basic thing for fixed overhead. We take the total budgeted fixed costs and divide by the total activity level. Now, an important note here is that sometimes companies use a different activity base for this part, but the principle is the same. For this example, the math spits out a fixed overhead rate of $1.20 per unit.
Okay, so we've defined overhead, we've built the budget, we've calculated rates. But let's ask the big "so what" question. What's the real-world payoff? Why do we go through all this trouble?
This budget is a powerhouse. Seriously, it lets you accurately cost your products so you can price them correctly. It creates a baseline, a target, so you can control your spending. It's a tool to evaluate how well your managers are doing their job. And honestly, you literally can't even finish the company's master budget without it. It is a true linchpin in the whole financial planning process.
At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It takes this big cloud of what seems like random, unpredictable costs, all those little things that keep a factory humming, and it turns them into a predictable, manageable, and controllable plan. It shines a bright light on the hidden costs of doing business.
So you see, the manufacturing overhead budget isn't just some boring accounting task. It's a fundamental tool for management and control. Because I'll leave you with this thought. If you don't have a plan for a cost, how can you ever really hope to control it?